Jeffro from Two Hacks Garage. Well, guess what, guys? Back at Jimmy's. It's actually a really beautiful Sunday morning. Church bells were just going off. And you know what I'm doing? Well, I'm getting ready to get this thing fired up. I don't know if it's going to happen today, but there's a good possibility. If you look at other videos that we've done recently, we've been really focusing on all the little things, getting everything done. Today, got a few things I need to do. I need to put the battery in here. Now, mind you, we showed you it's got an external jump pack battery system for the actual starter. But there's a little motorcycle battery that goes in this to control the trans brake solenoid, the shift solenoid, and power to the tach. There's a special tachometer with this with a shift light. I'm going to make a separate video on that once we get the mag in and explain that all to you. Other things we got going on. Well, I need to install the headers. I was waiting on some header gaskets. There's a special kind that you want to use with this. It's a copper style on that. If you notice here, it's got like spacers on it. So I called Holly, ordered up the gaskets. They sent them. I can get those thrown on there. Other things need to do. Well, we need to chuck a mag in here. That way we can actually, fire this thing up. I do have a Vertex magneto. I ordered a bunch of parts for it. My friend Brian from B&R Racing, he's going to get all that set up. Whether we use that one today or one of Jimmy's old ones, we just need a magneto in place to get this thing going. One of the other things is what Jimmy's going to be working on. He's going to be working on the fuel injection piece of this. There's a leak down procedure you need to do. You need to set main jet. You need to set all these parameters that I really don't know about. It's a good thing that I was able to talk to Don Enriquez. He is a Hilborn expert. And I talked to him the other night for about an hour, made a whole bunch of notes, a bunch of tips and tricks to get this thing going. I also got a really cool book I'm going to show you. A friend of mine, Tony DeFeo, he actually had it sitting around and he sent it to me. It's a book from 1971. It's called High Performance with Fuel Injectors by Vernon E. Tomlinson. It's a very hard book to find, but it's an awesome book. It's very period correct for this type of injection setup. It was written when this type of setup was being used, and I'll show you that here in a few minutes. But yeah, it's a beautiful Sunday morning. I'm ready to get the rest of the little small things done with this thing. I'm ready for Jimmy to get everything set up on here, and hopefully maybe we can make some noise. With that, guys, making some noise, there's a couple procedures that we're going to go through. One, we'll obviously make sure it fires, make sure it idles right, has great crisp throttle response. But if we get time, what we'll do is we'll test the trans brake, the solenoid, run it through its gears, and, make sure everything works. I'm wanting to get licensed soon in this. I'm getting really antsy to get it on the drag strip. It's almost summertime, and jumping jack flash, it is a gas, and I want to see how fast I can go. With that, guys, I'm rambling. I need to go wrestle Jimmy away from the phone. With that, guys, I'm going to push this back in there and start working on some of them small things. Tell you what, it could be a really exciting day. I really hope it is. With that, we'll see you soon. Later. All right, so here's what we got going on. Here's the different gaskets we got for this setup. These are a copper seal, and these are a thick header style gasket that take a whole lot of heat. Like I said, I got these from Holly. They're going to be great for application. These are the kind Jimmy's used for years. So yeah, that's what we got to install along with the Zoomies when the time comes. Here's that battery I was talking about. It's literally just a motorcycle battery. Like I said, that just supplies power to the trans brake solenoid, the shift solenoid, and that FIE stack tachometer. Like I said, I'm going to explain that in a later video. Got our spark plugs here. We're using an NGK V-Power, and I got to get those gapped. I already got that all written down, what gap specification I need. So yeah, that's good to go on that. And so that's kind of the small things left to do. Let me show you the book I was telling you about that is kind of really explanatory on some of this older fuel injection. Be right back. All right, so here's the book I was talking about, High Performance with Fuel Injection. It goes also by another name if you find one, High Performance with Fuel Injectors. Like I said, it's 1971 by Vernon Tomlinson. It's actually a really good book. It's pretty much breaks it down by category, talks about jetting, talks about all the different setups, the pumps, you name it, jetting, gaskets, O-rings, the types, setting up linkage, all that fun jazz. So this book is going to come in really handy. Along with that, you know what, guys, there's some stuff if we do get to test this thing out today, yes, obviously need a timing light. That's a sun inductive timing light. Got a gap spark plugs. So obviously I got my fancy old gap tool, or you can use the old fashioned way here. Always good to take notes. This is a spark tester here. You can put that in line. If you don't think it's firing, yeah, you can see if you got spark. Some other tools you're going to kind of need with that. Well, you want to check your temperatures on stuff. So you know what? You got this. It's a heat gun. And if we fire this thing up, we'll explain what this does and how you can actually help tune with that. Oh, there's our zoomies there. So yeah, we are just about ready to rock. I'm going to start putting all the little things on this. See you soon. All right, so now's a good time to actually check the electrical system. Like I said, I got it all wired, and I got the battery in, fuses, all that fun jazz, but now we need to check it. So I do have a main fused power switch back here, and turn that on, and as you can see, there's that tack. Like I said, I'm going to make a video on that, which is, it's pretty cool. I still have to program it and all that fun jazz, but mind you, I have a trans brake solenoid, and I have a shift solenoid that also runs on that. So let's test it out. So I know I got power, trans brake. Let's see if solenoid works. That works. Shift solenoid. Yep, it works. I know I need to adjust it. That rod can move back and forth. I need to hit it so that thing hits like that. So yeah, the electrical system works. Pretty happy about that. I think what I'm going to do now is sit down and actually program this. There's some paperwork with it. Pretty neat setup. We're going to be running a mag, and there's a way you need to do that with a tachometer, and you just can't run a regular tachometer. So yeah, I'll be doing a video on that. Expensive, but worth it. See you soon. All right, so here's where we're at now. We have all the correct jets and springs in the main bypass, main feed. All that is done. Jimmy went ahead and took care of that. We did do a leak down test. I don't know enough about it to really explain it, but you have a barrel valve in here, and you need to set it as a percentage. And the information that we got and all our research showed between 18 and 20%. It's leaking right down at 20%. Okay, so that's good to go.
Let me explain this real quick. The best way I can put it, leak down. Okay, if no fuel flowing through the barrel valve, or we call it the magic box, everybody has for years, but the barrel valve assembly, then it's stagnant. Nothing's happening. Takes fuel to run the engine. Takes around 20%. Now, there are different compressions, different fuels, but a general rule, and Hilborn figured this out, and they figured this out over the years. This particular application with this particular size nozzles and this particular main jet and this particular idle bypass, which is this thing right here, it's got like 2 pounds on it, and it's leaking fuel back all the time at an idle, so it's not trying to force the engine to drink it, and which would result in a too rich condition. So, with all that being said, the fuel system is a non-leaking fuel system. I mean, you don't see it running all over the place. So if it don't leak fuel, it probably won't leak air. So the object is you put a leak down tester on it, put 100 pounds on the gauge with a air compressor. It's got a good regulator on it, plus the leak down tester has a regulator on it too. You set it at 100 pounds, and that's nothing going through it, nothing moving. You cap off the idle bypass, and which we might want to check tightness on that. But with it all being said and done, you turn the barrel valve here. I've already adjusted the butterflies to where each one of them is approximately well, I have them set at 3,000. Hilborn said 3 to 4. I always go on the minimum. And that can be controlled. I control mine. I set mine dead. Tap with a screwdriver, set them dead with no adjusters here on, just completely slam shut, linkage rod off, and then I have them set, then I bring these screws in one at a time, then put the linkage rod in it, and it's done. And when you hit the throttle, they all stand straight up like they're supposed to. And the barrel valve or spool valve in the distribution block is wide open like it's supposed to. There's a ramp that goes from almost zero to steadily. The further you open the spool valve, the ramp runs off to where it's a wide open condition.
We can show you that real quick. If you look down in here, if you look at that hole, you'll see that move and go away. And there's a little bit dark, but there's a ramp. So when that's wide open, there's a ramp for the fuel. That hole is allow fuel to move at idle.
And that hole you see at the top right here, where I said earlier, when it's idling, it's coming through the spool valve and out that cap there and back to the tank. That's the idle bypass. Usually you set a 2 pound, and it could be a 3 or 3 pound, but usually around a 2 pound idle bypass. So it doesn't starve the engine or flood the engine when you snap off the throttle from wide open. Plus, when it's idling, there again, it's sending a lot of fuel back to the tank and only using what it needs to use. Unlike a carburetor, the carburetor relies on vacuum to suck the fuel out of the carburetor, and you have different size venturis, those little jets and all that stuff. But this is being force-fed fuel by the fuel pump down here. And the more speed, the more RPM it gets, and the fuel pump is always turning half speed as a crankshaft because the camshaft's always half speed as a crankshaft. So I don't have a spec sheet in front of me, but this fuel pump might make 100, 150 pounds at
I think
7,000 RPM. I don't know. I'd have to go look and see.
That one was 6.5 gallons per minute, 100 pounds at 4,000 RPMs, but that's an 8,000 RPM engine speed.
But this is a
-1
PG 150-C, but it's also a -1 pump, which means it flows a little more fuel per minute than a 0. And then they make a -2 also.
It looks complicated, but this is your main feed line that goes in
from the tank here.
Yep.
And then this out of bypass is coming back and dumping fuel here, which is basically sucking it back in the engine anyhow.
So if you look here, it comes in, it's spinning it. You got your throttle and all that, which routes fuel to it. It bypasses back down back to the tank, and then you've got your main jet here, and that's a high-speed lean, which technically we're not using, but these also bypass fuel back to the tank.
On a fuel injection system, basically, it's just like turning a water faucet on in your sink. The wider, the more you turn it on, more fuel you get, or more water you get out of your kitchen faucet or any faucet. Now, on a Hilborn, you cannot deadhead the pump. When you kill the engine, at the end of the run, you back off, pull the fuel, shut off, you'll hear the engine come up in RPM because it's leaning itself out. Then you die, then I click the mag off. I don't click the mag off with the cylinders loaded. Right now the fuel's on. This is for the fire system. So when you shut the fuel off, everything's turning, so it's still sucking fuel in, but it's changed it from coming out of the pump to the engine to coming out of the pump, and it's basically just making a circle right now when the three-way fuel shut off is in that position. Now it's feeding the engine, but it's got the other circuit blocked off. And also when the engine is running, you have a main jet. The main jet and the fuel injector are just the opposite of the carburetor. The main jet on the fuel injector, the bigger the hole in the main jet, the more fuel you send back to the tank, so the engine's getting less fuel. Carburetor, the bigger the hole in the jet, the more it's dumping in the engine. Just the opposite on a fuel injector. But this is called a high-speed lean-out. Quarter-mile tracks, 1,000-foot tracks. Sometimes it depends on the fuel setup, the engine, the type of fuel, the RPM you're running, and all that. It depends on what type of, if you even use the high-speed lean-out. The high-speed, like on a quarter-mile track, 1,000-foot track, as the engine's done taking all that big heavy fuel load to get it off the starting line and get it up to, I'm going to use the word cruising speed, then you can start leaning the fuel system out. And that little spring in there starts to open. It's all got to do with pressure from the fuel pump, and start bleeding fuel off of it. That's where people get in trouble with nitromethane, because nitromethane, if you lean it out too much on the big end of the track towards the finish line, the big end we call it, then you can melt a piston, because nitro makes a lot of oxygen when it burns, and now they have oxygenated alcohol, which I don't use. I've never tried it, but I guess there is some fuel setups for it, but a lot of people, they like it in turbo applications and stuff like that. But I just want to stick with the basics like I've always done.
So there's your lesson in fuel injection. We're going to leave this video where it's at. The next one is probably where we make a whole lot of noise, but we got a whole lot of work done again. And yeah, it's pretty much throw a mag in it, throw some fuel in it, make sure the battery's charged, light her off. See you in the next one.